In search of a new start on the world stage, the government has set an ambitious new climate change target that would see the UK cut carbon emissions further and faster than any other major economy. It's all in anticipation of COP26, the UN climate change conference, which will be hosted by the UK in Glasgow next year.
So I'm very happy to say that we in the UK are going to lead by example, going further and faster than ever before with a new target to cut emissions by at least 68% by 2030.
Overseeing the talks is Alok Sharma, COP26 President, as well as Business Secretary.
Well, of course, it's an ambitious target, and I think that's right and proper. We, of course, have the presidency of the COP26 next year. We're holding the Climate Ambition Summit on the 12th of December, together with the UN and France in partnership with Italy and Chile. And we are looking forward to other countries, other leaders, coming forward with ambitious targets, just as Boris Johnson has done.
To achieve this, the government has a 10-point plan, which lays out targets to increase offshore wind, hydrogen and nuclear power, electric vehicles, public transport, cycling and walking, and to make buildings more energy efficient. They say it's a detailed blueprint. Others have called it a wish list.
The Prime Minister's announced 40 gigawatts of offshore wind. They've also set a target that 60% of the production of offshore wind should take place domestically. But they're way off that target. Why? Because they're not investing in the ports, the shipyards, the supply chain, which other countries are doing to get those jobs here in Britain. So what we need to see from government is not just the grand targets, but the granular delivery, so we actually have the jobs in this country, for example, that we so desperately need.
One area singled out by the government is heat pumps, an alternative to gas boilers that run on a small amount of electricity. Even the snow didn't stop this one being installed in Nottingham today.
The more people that know about heat pumps, that it's a better alternative. You know, they don't cost very much to run, they're super clean, super quiet, add value to the house as well.
But they are expensive, costing up to £20,000, although some grants are available. The government wants to see 600,000 new heat pumps being installed every year by 2028, up from the current level of around 40,000. How realistic is that, do you think?
I think it's achievable. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of work needed in the background to enable that, but this company was not installing heat pumps a year ago, and it's the primary function of the business now.
But in the end, who is going to pay for all of this? Renewables already add to energy bills, and although government will take on some of the costs, it's unclear where the rest will fall. Chris Stark is part of the Climate Change Committee that advises the government.
Is this in danger of becoming a bit of a sort of middle-class initiative? Things like electric cars, heat pumps, they're very expensive. Should we really be asking people to invest in things like that at a difficult economic period?
The challenge for the next 10 years is not just to make these kind of grand statements about how emissions need to fall, but also building up the supply chain to deliver all the things that will actually cut emissions, the jobs with it, making those products that we'll be using by 2030, the things that will cause emissions to fall, making those things cheap so that they are just a commonplace feature of life.
And is there a bit of politics or political posturing behind this?
I definitely think there's a bit of political posturing here, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's important that the UK presents itself as it wishes to be seen on the global stage. I think it helps immensely that Joe Biden is coming into the US presidential seat. He's made it very clear that climate change is going to be a feature of the US presidency this time. This is an opportunity for the UK to demonstrate that those kind of ambitions are the same kind of ambitions that we have here in the UK.
This may be just as much about global politics as it is about global warming, but there are bigger issues at stake. Ambitious targets have been made and missed before, but with world leaders anxious to look beyond COVID, maybe this is the moment for real climate change.
Well, we were expecting a minister from the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy to appear on the programme, but this afternoon they withdrew that offer. I'm joined now by Hannah Martin from the Green New Deal campaign group and also the chairman of the Committee on Climate Change, Lord Deben, who was formerly the Conservative Environment Secretary, John Gummer. Lord Deben, how much is Britain going to have to change over the next 10 years to meet this target?
Oh, well, very considerably. But what we will be publishing on Monday is the programme, the route map as to how we make those changes. And the government will then have a proper blueprint to do this job. And what we'll be expecting from the government then is to put to that the details, because we will have provided them with the route map which they need. So there is no reason to believe that we can't do it. It's an ambitious proposal, but we have worked out the cost. And whereas previously we said the costs would be between 0.5% and 2% of the GNP, the gross national product, we now think that it will be lower. It will be towards the bottom end of that bracket. So there is no question that we can do it. It's going to be hard and tough, and those who don't think it's good enough really have to recognize it's the very best we can do, but we can do it and we can pay for it. And if we do it in a just way, we can make sure that people who have charges are able to afford it, and the people who can afford it will be the people who pay.
Yes, well, I mean, we can do it, but someone's going to have to pay for it. Now, at the moment, if you look up what proportion of your electricity bill is going on environmental charges, effectively, subsidies, it's over 20%. So what's that going to go to over the next 10 years? Because
yes,
things like heat pumps cost a lot of money.
Well, the cost of the energy is... Yes, but if I may say so, the cost of the energy is falling all the time. And offshore wind is now one of the cheapest ways of generating. So those costs will fall. And that's the great thing. What we're doing is recreating our economy and at the same time reducing the costs, because that's what happens when you create a great market like this. And already we've shown that in the cost of offshore wind and onshore wind. You can't generate electricity as cheaply as we now can with renewables.
Hannah Martin, Lord Deben makes it all sound pretty easy.
I think that, there is a way to meet these targets. I think what's missing is the political will. Frankly, it's been 5 years since the Paris Agreement. We are not meeting our current targets, let alone the one that has been announced today. And the one that's been announced today has some pretty big emissions. It doesn't include shipping or aviation. Those account for about 6 to 7% of the UK's emissions. And I think that, words are good, symbolic actions are important, but what's better than both those things is a credible, costed plan and proper financial commitments. The 10-point plan.
Well, we've got a 10-point plan, haven't we? Boris Johnson put that out recently.
That was 4 billion of new money. The rest of it was rehashed money that has already been announced. If you compare that to what was invested recently in military spending, for example, I think we have to look at our economy as, what are we prioritizing here? And I think that when it comes to climate change and climate breakdown that we are already experiencing in this country and all over the world, we have to ask ourselves, can we afford not to spend in order to protect ourselves, but also to create the kind of world we want to live in? We can create millions of good green jobs all over the country. We can revitalize parts of the country that have been left behind for years. Where I'm from, in Wakefield, that's a place that hasn't seen proper investment in jobs since the 1980s. That's a place that could benefit from a huge rollout in insulation jobs, in nature restoration. We can really build something really incredible with a low carbon economy, but the lack of political will is what's holding us back.
Lord Deben, if you go back to 2015, the government watered down the zero carbon pledges on new homes. When you look back at that, I mean, that was done because of the austerity crisis after the banking crisis and the need to find savings somewhere. Has that set us back? Was it a mistake in retrospect?
Oh, it was a total mistake, and it has set us back, and it will mean it will cost us more to do what we have to do. We should have done it then. I think that the government has actually got to step up to the plate. I don't disagree with the comments that Hannah has made. It is a remarkable opportunity that we have. the way out of COVID-19 is the same way that you have to go in order to fight climate change. I don't think that it is fair to say the government hasn't got the will, but it hasn't yet committed itself to the means. And that is what the Climate Change Committee's report on Monday will give them the opportunity. We will then keep their feet to the fire because we cannot miss this opportunity. These are the 10 years which will decide whether we allow climate change to destroy us or whether we destroy climate change.
Can I just briefly ask you about something quite different, Lord Deben? Because as a Conservative cabinet minister, of course, you famously tried to reassure the public with burgers and your family. Now, with the current COVID crisis, ministers are talking about.
Right, wasn't I?
well, ministers are talking about having COVID jabs on TV. Do you think it's a good idea?
Well, that's not my job. I'm an independent chairman of this committee. I'm just waiting for my my air source heat pump to come in so that I'm walking the walk. And what I'm here to do is to recognise that the most important thing now is a thing we don't have a vaccine for, and that's climate change. I certainly will be happy to have the vaccine for COVID myself, but the thing that we've got to do is to fight climate change, which is a bigger emergency, and for that, there is no vaccine.